Welcome back to Little Fix, Big Life. We're Demi and Jonny. We've just packed up our entire lives, leaving the village we grew up in, our friends, our family, to start fresh in southwest Wales. We've been hunting for our dream home since 2022. Over the years, we've viewed so many different types of properties. In this episode, we wanted to share our favourites and explain some of the ideas we had for them. We'll also finally reveal which option we went for. We came across a woodlands being sold, which ticks loads of our boxes in terms of price, location and potential. Although if I'm honest, the place did creep me out a bit. Walking in along the track from the road, it opened out into this vast open area. This is where we could see our forever home going. Imagine a cabin in the woods type vibe. Once you left this area though, it did get pretty wild. I don't really know why I took so many photos and videos of all the caravans. I think I was slightly terrified and slightly fascinated and had this inkling in the back of my head that it would make the most incredible before and after shots. I mean, look, terrifying. It was super close to a popular country park, so perfectly located to host glamping pods or a campsite. It was also hooked up to mains electricity, so we wouldn't need to pay huge amounts to get connected or commit to being totally off-grid. The listing said there were 3 caravans included. However, when wandering around, we found many more, including a few more very static looking ones, located in what could only be described as a swamp. If you're an expert on botany, we'd love to get your opinion here. The site was absolutely full of this plant, which we think was Japanese knotweed. We may be wrong as it wasn't declared on the listing, but we did know we'd need to get this clarified before going ahead either way, because it's a nightmare to try and eradicate. We were advised the land had its own spring water, so we headed off to find this. It was on one of the public footpaths that ran through the woods, so once we'd checked this out, we started the walk up. The woods is situated on a pretty steep mountain, but we loved the idea of building cabins up the hillside, leading to a stunning viewpoint at the top. Just picture a wood-fired hot tub and barbecue right at the summit. The fog tried to ruin the view for us, but we did stand here for a while and get pretty excited and windswept about what an incredible opportunity this could be. Advertised with full planning permission for a 2-bed house, we went to view an old chapel. We've seen lots of similar properties up for sale in Wales, but this one grabbed our interest. The location was perfect, and the land registry showed it was part of a large plot set away from the road on the edge of a village. Inside was a fairly simple story. In its original guise as a chapel, it had some issues like rotten floor joists and blown render, but it was a renovation the size of which we were looking for and felt like it was a really interesting project. From the listing, we knew it included the active graveyard, and the sellers had made it clear the chapel would stay linked to it. This means it would be our responsibility to maintain the public access rate to the graveyard. This property was placed on half an acre of land and used to be a pub. It was a bit of a unique situation in that some rooms had been renovated, maybe not to our style but to a really good condition, and other rooms had been completely ignored by the last 2 or 3 owners. Downstairs consisted of the pub's old men's and women's toilets, urinals and everything. There was also the old cellar, then a dining room, lounge, kitchen, utility room and an office. We had visions of finally renovating the back end of the building where the pub spaces existed. There was a small courtyard to one side with gorgeous views to a neighbouring field. Access to this courtyard was through the office, currently used as a dog room. Heading through this and then upstairs, there were 3 bedrooms and a family bathroom. Things started to get slightly more interesting up here with Jonny spotting some interesting DIY, which with hindsight, we assume was hiding large problems. There was a beautiful chimney breast in one of the bedrooms though, which we'd love to have made more of a feature of. One of the other benefits of this property was that it had a granny annex attached. As you can see, it was used as storage by the current tenants, and to avoid paying a second lot of council tax, they'd ripped the bathroom suite out. But the bones of this section didn't look bad, and it would give us space and opportunities for the future. The outside space was ample, not the dream acreage we'd imagined, but compared to what we have now, there was so much more room. More than half of it was still a car park, totally tarmacked, which I imagine would put many people off. But for us, and Jonny's enthusiasm for Defenders and workshop space, it was kind of ideal. The grass section was still plenty for some raised beds, a chicken coop, and loads of room for Poppy and Luna to run around. We just had to check the fence was secure, because I was slightly concerned about the road on the doorstep. Something else Jonny had flagged on the viewing was that the runoff from the road would go straight to the house and into the original ACO drain, which ran directly underneath the toilet block extension. It also showed some signs of being damaged underground. This kind of diagnosis and repair does not come under a carpenter's remit, so though we could tell there was a problem, we weren't sure how big it was. We also viewed this old farmhouse with a casual 14 acres of land. As you can see, it's a beautiful building in that farmhouse style that we love. The house itself wasn't actually too bad in terms of what we were expecting and what we felt we could take on. Some rooms were in total disrepair. 50% of floors were missing in some rooms, but this was a stark contrast with the original features it held, like this stunning tiled floor in the entrance and a stained glass window in the porch. The kitchen and downstairs toilet were in a lean-to on the back of the house. Realistically, you'd need to knock this down and start again. They are in a pretty bad way. This may seem quite drastic, but with Jonny being a carpenter, it wasn't too daunting of an idea for us. Upstairs, there was a family bathroom and 3 bedrooms. A long corridor with loft access connected all the rooms, and it was a similar story up here. The bones weren't terrible in most places. However, there was clear evidence of damp. Jonny was confident this was from a leak in the roof, and back outside with his trained eye, his guess was that this was coming from the knackered flashings. Outside, there are a handful of barns in various states of disrepair and size. However, this was super exciting for us. We had ideas for the main larger barn to be used as workshop, storage, every Defender owner and Chippy's dream. Then the 2 smaller pig barns could be converted into holiday lets, or space for my hobbies much further down the line. One of the huge draws of this property was the land that came with it. But as I said, there's 14 acres included, a mix of fields and woodlands. You'd likely leave the woodlands wild, just maintaining the public footpaths throughout, but our big dreams of running a business off the land would be possible from the space nearest to the house in the form of acres worth of fields. We'd just need to buy a tractor first. That's it, that's it. Last up in today's video is a wildcard option that we nearly didn't bother to view as we didn't know if it ticked enough boxes. It's a 3-bed bungalow on the outskirts of a small village with garage and large driveway. One of the pools though was this stunning view. Having been built in the 80s and lived in by the same family since, it was in need of a total renovation. Art text on every ceiling, old carpets, knackered doors, almost as much concrete as grass outside. However, we turned up and got a bit excited. The roof looked good, there wasn't any damp, the drainage was impeccable. We instantly had ideas about rejigging some walls, the kind of kitchen we could install, and what it would be like in the winter with a log burner. There's also potential to put a dormer on the back to really make the most of that view. To talk through the pros and cons of each of those then, see if you can guess which one we went for. First up was the woodlands. So the big pro for this one was that it had so much potential to be an amazing spot to run a business from. So for us, having the woodlands, the location of it, having the actual woods, our ideas of having camping, glamping pods like cabins up the mountain, that scenic viewpoint at the top, it could have been a really exciting thing for us to get stuck into and yeah, build a business locally as well, which would have been really cool. The cons though?
The downsides to it, there's a lot of Japanese knotweed present, which is a big problem in Wales and for insurance purposes. There was only actually about 3 acres of the land that was usable because it was on such a steep slope, so in terms of having flat land to try and build things on was quite challenging, and we could only get a land mortgage on it, so that was pretty much the final nail in the coffin. Yeah, until there's a building on it, there was no way to get anything other than the land mortgage, which is just way too expensive. So next up was the chapel that we went to look at. The building itself was in a really solid state. That was really, really good. It was perfect for us to go in and just basically sort the internals. So that was a big positive for us. It was in a great location. But downsides.
So the cons to this one were, it turns out it wasn't the whole plot being sold. They'd split it, so you'd only actually be owning less than, I think, a third of that plot of land that we thought we were getting. There was also planning applications being put on the rest of that land to build 3 more properties, so that private, beautiful, big open space you had would not be there anymore. And the graveyard that we mentioned, in the architecture's drawings, the access to that literally ran up our driveway. And because you had such little space being given to you as part of that plot, there was not really any other options. So that wasn't so great in the end as an option either. So the next one is then the pub. We loved this one. I think the biggest pro for us was probably the potential the building had. The fact there was that granny annex space, the fact that it used to be a pub, and we really loved the idea of bringing it back to what it used to be and bringing out all those kind of character features again. We felt the skills that Jonny had really lent them really well to the renovations that needed to happen. And it's a bit of a unique one where there was that massive car park, so all that tarmac space, that was actually a pro for us because it meant that you could have defender space and have workshop space without having to worry about having to put basically, tarmac down in the first place. But there was a lot of cons with this one. Let's start.
Yeah, on the downside to that one, we had an offer accepted. We got through to a survey. We knew there were going to be some damp issues, but the survey highlighted that they were much more extensive than we'd realised and could be quite costly to repair. We then struggled for quite a long time.
Weeks and weeks.
To try to get a builder to go and quote for what it was going to cost, so then we could go to negotiations. There was just difficulty in trying to tie someone down to go and have a look, and I think that was made significantly harder by the fact we were not in the area. We couldn't go and just meet them on site and talk through what we were hoping for.
I do think if we'd literally been 5-10 minutes away, it would have been so much quicker.
Yeah, definitely. Trying to converse what we were hoping to be quoted for was quite a challenge. And then when we did finally get a quote through, the sellers weren't willing to negotiate, so that sort of priced us out, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was it. There was no negotiation. That was the end of that. Okay, so then there's the farmhouse. So loads of pros with this one. Beautiful farmhouse, literally the dream renovation for us. 14 acres, so loads of space, loads of potential, loads of barns, amazing location. Yeah, it ticked pretty much every single box for us. We loved it. However, there was a big con.
It was pretty much sold before we had a chance to go and look at it. So we obviously got down there, the estate agent didn't meet with us. That was because it was basically already had several offers in, and so he didn't see the point in meeting us, and it was sold basically before we just got home. So that was kind of the end of that one. I think that's the final nail in the coffin of living 4-hour drive away from when the good properties come on the market, they just sell that quickly, and we were missing out.
Yeah, which sucked because we loved that one, but yeah, not for us apparently. It's probably pretty obvious which one we've gone for from how we've been chatting, but I think it's probably time for the big reveal. Girls, what do you think? Yeah? Big reveal time? We're very excited to finally be in Wales, having bought the 80s bungalow.
So although this didn't tick as many boxes as some of the other ones, like there's no land, there was no workshop space, and there was no business opportunity on site, there were some significant positives to go with it as well, as we've discussed obviously on the last 2 properties that we missed out on purely by either not being able to liaise with builders or physically not being there to be able to put an offer in time. We were realising more and more we just needed to be in Wales, even if it's on a stepping stone type property, and to be able to get on with the style of life that we wanted to be living. A big pro of this one is it means we're living in Wales. It means we're able to go to the beach. It
means we can massively reduce the risk that came with every other property we looked at. So one of the big things we knew was me relocating for work was fine. Jonny would be starting from scratch, so you'd be having to find a new client base, or you'd be having to commute up and down the country. Moving to this one as well means that we haven't got to stress too much, so it's not a scary, spooky woodlands, so I wouldn't be worried about staying here on my own. It's a less expensive property for us to move to start with, so it means that, again, we don't have to feel that pressure that you've got to leave to go and make sure you're working full time.
Yeah.
It's based in that village, so we're joining a community, which is super important. We've come from a village community. A part of that community is the local pub that's walking distance for us. That actually reopened on the day that we came to visit it. So for us, it felt a little bit like fate, or for me anyway. So yeah, I think it's all just building up that picture of we want to move here, have a bit of a slower life, be a bit more relaxed, not feel too much pressure, enjoy being in the Welsh community, and actually have time to do the renovations on the bungalow that we're now really excited to do. So although it's not quite as dramatic as a renovation, I'm really excited to get stuck into it. There's some kind of cool things we can do to bring it back up to date and keep like kind of our styling going back through it. There's potential to go up and put a dormer on the back to make the most of that beautiful view that we absolutely adore. So yeah, there was a lot of pros, even if it didn't tick every single box we originally thought. Now it's time for the all-important question. Which one would you guys have picked? Tune in next time for a full tour of our new place. We're very excited to start sharing our ideas, showing off the amazing community we've joined, and start to live life in the way we've been dreaming of for years. Thanks so much for joining. If you're happy to like and subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. See you next time.